This is actually a very, very interesting point that you brought. So it's not only the payment gateway, like we were discussing a while ago that some of the e-commerce websites or many other services websites, they mandate a user to have a login through an email address. And a local language user doesn't even know what an email is, many of them, right? So he can't even get started. So it's not about just the language barrier, but also when we talk about a local user or a new user, today the internet needs have changed from what it was 10 or 15 years ago, right? So internet has already been here for like 20 years now, but it has grown phenomenally in the last 5 or 6 years. So that all these new users have a different usage behavior. That obviously needs to be catered to, and like you said, that payment gateway is a lot of emphasis has not been given, but some others, for example Paytm, right, alternate payments, have understood these needs and have tried to make their payment services multiple. So at some point, if the government doesn't move and if there are alternate services available, they will realize and they will probably move, and so the solution has to evolve. However, I'd still like to point out that there are certain key things that the government could or should do to be able to help this. So one of the things is that not all the services on the internet would need one to have an email address or payments or so. A lot of services can just be like search. आप search कर रहे हैं और data consume कर रहे हैं. Well, it is as good as like going into your library, taking out a book and reading it, right? So you search it by looking for your book, you take it out and you read. So this is precisely what you are likely to do here, and start taking notes. So this is one of the very baseline behavior of digital medium usage from the physical medium. लेकिन उसमें एक इंडियन यूजर टोटली क्रिपल्ड है. मैं आपको बताता हूँ कैसे क्रिपल्ड है. वो पढ़ने में क्रिपल्ड नहीं है. So who doesn't understand Hindi here? Because I'm likely to talk about it. Oh, you don't understand Hindi? You do, yeah. Who doesn't? Okay, so everybody, very comfortable. So the problem is, in being able to search करने के लिए उसको टाइप भी करना जरूरी है. आजकल तो वॉइस वगैरह आ गया है, लेकिन अगर आपका कोई पर्टिकुलर वर्ड ढूंढ रहे हैं जो वॉइस के मॉडल में नहीं हो तो आप टाइप भी नहीं कर सकते. तो टाइप करना जरूरी है. टाइप कैसे करेंगे? उसके लिए आपको टाइपिंग, the moment that question comes, I find that our country is digitally illiterate. We have 70% local language literacy. 70% local language literacy. Where? Pen and paper. Not in the digital medium. If out of these 70% people we ask how many of you can type, nobody knows. This problem doesn't exist for English, and we did not want to think why. Whenever this question came up, I have heard many people saying, well, it's difficult to type in Indian languages, therefore it is not happening. I want to answer or ask this same question. Why do we say it is difficult to type in Indian languages? Is it difficult to write in Indian languages? I would say yes, if that was difficult. But we don't say it is difficult to write, right? So if we go back and try and see how exactly did we learn how to write or how to type. When we learned English, we were taught A, B, C, D. There are only two types of cases: capital A, lowercase a, capital B, lowercase b, and so on. So 26 letters सीख लेने के बाद हमारी इंग्लिश लिटरेसी खत्म हो गई. उसके बाद से हम वर्ड्स लिख सकते हैं. आपका नाम क्या? किसी ने कहा प्रिया. अच्छा, P-R-I-Y-A. That's it. You can write. If you know the letters, you can write. Let's look at the same for Indian languages. How do you start writing Indian languages? आप सबसे पहले क्या सीखते हैं? वर्णमाला सीखते हैं, अ से ह तक. सीख जाने के बाद किसी ने कहा आपका नाम क्या? प्रिया. लिखो, नहीं लिख सकते. उसके बाद आपको क्या सीखना जरूरी है? बाराखड़ी, ताकि आप मात्राओं को सीख सकते हैं, आप डायक्रिटिक सीख सकते हैं. उसके बाद आपको क्या सीखना है? कंजंक्ट कैसे बनाते हैं, युक्ताक्षर कैसे लिखते हैं, राइट? सो जब तक आप बाराखड़ी वर्णमाला के अलावा बाराखड़ी और युक्ताक्षर सीख नहीं लेते, आपका लिटरेसी पहुंचा नहीं है वहां तक. सो दैट इज द प्रोसेस दैट यू फॉलो इन राइटिंग. You already know that to be able to write, you have a 3-step learning for your Indic languages. After that, life is so easy. But you know that it requires a different training. The properties are different. We don't classify that as difficult. And because the properties are different, it is not obvious. We have to learn. We have to be taught. हम स्कूल के अंदर में क्या पढ़ाते हैं? MS Paint. हर स्कूल में आजकल है कंप्यूटिंग. प्री प्राइमरी में है. प्री प्राइमरी में कंप्यूटर्स जब इंट्रोड्यूस होता है उसके बाद में लोगों को माइक्रोसॉफ्ट वर्ड, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट पेंट, right? I mean the drawing tools and those tools are taught. If you are exposing a kid to the word processing software and he is also at the same time reading Hindi, why not he be taught how to type in Hindi? These fundamentals, these 3 steps, if he knows, then the Hindi teacher can give an assignment. Why don't you write your little answer in computer? Write your little essay on the computer. Content will get created. They will naturally know how to do that. And once they have learned it, who will not keep on using it? Because it's all about, they all want to use it. It's just that they don't know how to. So it's an imperative, it's a responsibility for us to be teaching that, and school curriculums have not taken it. Even the digital literacy program today has got no action item point where it says that the course includes, introduction into Indian language technique. So, I have personally been chasing this for a really long time, more than a decade or 1.5 decades now. But maybe if this message goes, we should be looking at the education department. That would be a change.
Yes, so this is something very interesting that Vivek brought as well. So if you look at how the internet was consumed in India, say a decade and a half back, everything was built for the elite English-speaking masses. The keyboards, the hardware, everything that you had was all in English, right? And that's how it was predominantly consumed. But then something came along our way. Computing was not just desktop. Mobile phones came into our hands, right? And which is your own computer in your hand. So what we see now is that mobile phones are used more to access the internet than desktops. So desktop sales are actually going down, mobile phones are picking up, and we all know the next leg of computing will be driven by mobile phones. So आपके हाथ में जो mobile phone है, वो जरिया बन जाएगा आपका to access all information. And predominantly, of course, there are multiple phones, and Revry has done enough great work as well to give mobile apps, which are your input apps. So these are the keyboard apps. Even Google has built an Indic keyboard app which supports 11 odd languages. So the idea was that it should not be very difficult for you to start typing. But something interesting came along our way. हमने एक बहुत ही interesting user study देखी कि Indian languages set करना अपने phone पे is thought to be not cool. We think that if we project that we know English, it's considered elite. And this is a very important signal for our products to understand that you want to use the language in the phone language that you set. For example, if you set the phone language as English, if you go to your browser and type say google.com, you are taken to an English page. If you will be doing Hindi, of course everything else will follow, right? So very important signal that should have come across our way by changing the phone languages, not passing through to us. So that's where I think we have to start this thing of making Indian languages very, very cool. Recently, we've seen the handset manufacturers adopt this wave. A lot of handset manufacturers now, of course, the government also mandates them to have local language support, but they're coming out with campaigns. They're talking about promoting the local languages and making them cooler, right? If you talk about other countries where internet is consumed in their local language predominantly, you talk about China, you talk about Russia, you talk about Korea, you talk about our Southeast Asian neighbors as well. If you look at them, they are very proud of using their local language apart from English, right? And that has to be done by us. We need to be proud of our local language, about our culture, about our heritage. And I think that's something that will drive the ecosystem forward as well.
There are two issues for the Hindi language. One is for the script. Script is the another issue, and the language is another issue. Normally whatever we share on the social media and the WhatsApp and chatting, we chat in Hindi language, but we use the script in Roman script. Like we don't use in Devanagari script because of the, as he said, that we don't want to type in Hindi. Little bit complicated to type in Hindi or any regional language. That's why we write in Hindi, but we use the script, Roman script. That one, this is also a problem for the Indic content. So that's it.
Okay, so that was a good conversation and good discussion about various issues, and we've still not been able to exactly identify what the solution would be. So I can just point a few, way forward. One is that if we look at the content, that's the first thing we discussed. How do we increase the content? So our thought is, if I can quote CDAC, is that making typing in Indian language, as Vivekananda said, that it should be easy to type. So with the new technologies coming in like OHWR, online handwriting recognition. So if we implement that on smartphones, maybe that's a way out that could serve the purpose to a certain limit, if not to a large extent. But at least some people will get motivated to use a pen on the panel and get the local language input. The second thing would be, and then there could be some different more ways where we can simplify the input mechanism on a smartphone or on a PC or on a tablet, any such device. Second thing, when we come to these e-commerce websites, we need a policy so that this is this can be solved only through a mandate. You can't do anything else, because unless the government mandates it, these people will not follow, and they have their own inhibitions about putting payment gateway in a local language. I was surprised in one of the meetings, Vinita was there, I think she'll remember that in a huge meeting, the person who's actually chairing the session said that if the names are in local language and there's a bank transaction going on, it might go to the wrong person. So that's a funny thing to come from. You remember? So such stupid thoughts if our lawmakers have, I don't know where we'll go. And then, so this is the reason why I said that some careful thought has to be taken, and the policy, even if you take the case of a national IT policy, it doesn't have a mandate to have local language interface for government services, whereas the largest consumers of the government services are, they can't use English as a communication language. So this is something which is very, very important, and it has to be taken at the highest level. I don't know who's listening, or I find nobody is listening. We've been discussing this in various fora, and the status is still the same even after, let's say, 10, 15 years. In one of the sessions in the afternoon, I was in the next room and someone was saying that there are quite a few mobile applications in the local language being developed, but the actual user of that application is not the target user. There's an interface. So if you are developing an application for a farmer, it is not used by the farmer. It is used by a guy who is a young chap in the village, and he's facilitating n number of farmers. So that's a very good input. So a developer can actually now orient himself to actually design his application in that way, right? So a lot of things we have to, unless we go to the field, talk to the user and actually see the reality of the situation, only then we'll be able to give meaningful solutions. So with that, I think if anyone else has something to say.